rolling?
Podcasting.
We're podcasting. Well, I'm podcasting. Try's reading a book over there while we're supposed to be podcasting.
Yeah, you know me.
I always look for book recommendations, Try. So what?
I do recommend this book. Right here. My second co-authoring.
Number
Thanks
2.
to you.
Number 2.
The Playbook of Champions has arrived, Travis.
Yeah, boy.
Look at this thing. It's glowing.
Playbook of Champions.
Hardcover here. Looks beautiful on the coffee table.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the beginning.
By far the longest book. It's weird. It's hard to say that we wrote this book. 'Cause we didn't,
Right.
There's very little writing
Right.
that we did in it.
And, well, what writing that did happen, you did more of it.
Did the forward.
But
One of the forward. Me and you both wrote forward.
Forwards, yeah.
And then each player got a little bio. And so for the listeners who can't see the book, it's a big hardcover kind of coffee table style book. It's called Playbook of Champions that you can get on Amazon today and Barnes & Noble and wherever else you get your books. And what it is a compilation of the last 5 years of our podcast. So any guest that we had 2023 and onward was not included in the Playbook of Champions, or it would have just been constantly updating, right. And it never would have gotten published. So we had a hard cut at 5 years. But I think the funniest thing was because I was just going back and transcribing old episodes, and this book was your idea.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it was Brittany Hochever's podcast. And I forget what number she was, but she was early.
Early, yeah.
Early on. It was this kitchen table,
right.
Brittany Hochever, and you were saying, man, we should put together a book like Tools of Titans. Uh-huh. And I was like, what a great idea.
Yes, that idea stuck. See, I can just throw stuff out all the time. Getting it
like Volleyball for Milkshakes is your idea. Volleyball for Milkshakes was your idea. And then this was your idea. Although now that Austin, I have a kid, I realized what you were looking for with Volleyball for Milkshakes.
Oh yeah, right. Well, we still go for the preschooler book.
You can still get it.
We went. That one was like elementary level. It just organically turned into what it was.
It did.
I think that's the best way to do anything, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I mean, I've always liked that book, Tools of Titans. I thought it was just so valuable, and like also you don't have to like sit down and read a whole book.
Right.
Sorry about our construction going on outside. The studio is really getting a makeover, so we're continuing to build. But I mean, this kind of nails it.
Yeah.
Like you really just can go to the table of contents, look through the list of athletes, which ones excite you. Who do you wonder about? Like, oh, I've never heard this person's name. If you're an avid beach volleyball fan, you probably know 95% of these people, 100% if you've been listening to the podcast for 5 years.
Yeah.
But there's so many people from different levels of the game, not people that have only succeeded on the court. And so you can just go through the contents, pick a player, jump to that page, read it, and then go back to the contents, pick another player. That's how I love to read the book.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I'm just so stoked that we pulled it off.
And like at the end of the day, when your brain's fried or whatever, and you don't want to follow a narrative or try to follow a story, you can just open up to in the middle of this thing and find Tim Brewster and go through his page or two or whatever it may be. And that's it. And so the concept, if you haven't read Tools of Titans, we basically just took all the golden nuggets from every guest that we have had in the first 5 years. So that was 2017 through 2022. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many guests it was because we're at 309 episodes right now. So a couple hundred guests are in there, ranging all the way from April Ross to Tim Brewster to Brett Favre. So we cover a pretty wide spectrum.
Exactly. We got the first 180, 190 pages are in the contents. You're going to see it's the players. And then the players who have gone beyond being players. The next section is the legends. So you can look under the name of legends and go read their sections. And then the coaches. And then the community.
Yeah, and so the community, and a lot of these, it was tough to figure out who went where sometimes.
Right.
Because where do you put a Jose Loiola, who was a player, who was a coach, and he's a legend.
And he's the
When would he-
community.
Yeah, and he's the whole USA community. Although, congrats to Jose, just got the UCLA assistant job.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming the USA head job will probably be open.
It
again.
is. It is available.
So like with a lot of that, I had to figure out who went where.
Mm-hmm.
So for Brandon Joyner, I almost felt kind of bad that I put him in the community section because I think his impact in the game is biggest as the Better at Beach community and the leader of that with him and Burik.
Yep.
I don't know where I put Burik if he was in, because Burik has a better resume as a player.
Burik's in the players.
He's probably
Yeah.
so everything, it's not super cut and dry, but the community was pretty fun because that's where the Greg Delgados, the Ed Kellers, all the people who were doing things like the Cameron Irwins,
Mark
Kevin
Paoluhi.
Barnett's, Mark Paoluhi, all those guys. And then you had the legends and the players. It was really fun to put together because
Mikhail Jenkins.
Yeah, there's
Finn
your boy.
Taylor.
Mhm.
Yep.
And you get Dave Mays, like 1440.
Dave Mays.
It was fun. It's a little time capsule.
Dude, totally.
And like so every episode that we've done, I've been a part of twice anyway. So I host it with you, and then I would have gone back and listened to it because every podcast comes a little write-up in Volleyball Mag. And so I'll listen to them, pull quotes from it, and write a story from it.
Yeah.
But then going back through and transcribing them again, I forgot like so many, like 90% of all the episodes.
Yeah.
So it was so fun to go back and listen to April's episode in 2017 when she picked up Alix Klineman.
Right.
Like, this was awesome.
The premonition.
Yeah. And she just predicted everything that would happen. And then what I started doing was
I need to go back and listen to our first episode.
Buddha try.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a
See
fun
where
one.
I was at in my life at that point. I was in a very different place.
You looked a lot different
I
too.
did, yeah. Exactly. I think this shot on the back of the book
Yeah.
is from the kitchen table.
That was
one of the OG podcasts, and maybe, do you remember which one?
that might have been like
That might have been
day
it.
one.
The initial one, right?
I think it was.
So perfect photo to pick. That's Buddha try.
That's Buddha try right there. But what I started doing was when I would transcribe certain episodes and I hadn't talked to people in a while, I would just send them a little snippet, a quote that they had said, and be like, hey, I just this is what we're doing. Just transcribed your episode, and I just wanted to share it. Like, I thought you'd enjoy it. And the reactions from people were so cool.
Yeah.
I remember sending it to Caitlin Ledoux, and it was just something about if you never go all in, like, you'll never know what's going to happen, and that she doesn't want to, she wants to keep pushing herself.
Right.
And she's since retired and gotten into real estate, and she has 3 kids now. And she was like, you have no idea how badly I needed to hear that. And it was just like advice from her younger self was like talking to her.
It's
cool.
interesting how wise you can be, so much wiser than you think you are. Like when you cut out like all the BS that we all are spouting all the time. That's why it's nice to have you around sometimes. Remind me, like, you actually said something decent at one point. And I was like, oh, nice. Right on. Thanks for remembering. But that's basically what this is. Like, we took the highlight of each person's episode. The whole point of the podcast from day one was to allow each guest to kind of own their own episode, right? Like, we're not really going to steer the narrative as much as let you take it where you want to take it. Let you have a opportunity to present yourself, your brand to the fan base, to the other players, tell your story, so that when you go out on the court or when you're out there in the community or whatever it is, the legends are more like giving back. It's your authentic brand.
Yeah.
And you can be more yourself and be more whatever you want to be. And that's the cool thing about the book, is we just kind of took like, what was your biggest nugget of knowledge, or even a story, habits, whatever it is, and we just put it all in one book. And it's just like, dude, this is going to be one of the more valuable things. Like, looking back, let's say the podcast goes under next year, which it won't. Like, we're gonna have this book to be like, damn, this is sick. And look how much we learned as well. For us, it's like, if I sit here and talk to every athlete over the years, like, I'm gonna absorb and learn stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worked for sure, but I've done pretty well for myself. and I feel like I'm always learning, and I'm so much better than I was before. And I think a lot of it has to do with taking an hour, 2 hours each week to like talk and have conversations and ask questions with these people. So super valuable.
I think podcasting has been the greatest cheat code just to life in general. Yeah. Because you just get, it's like the greatest win-win, where we get to pull on the best people at what they do, and just ask them how they do what they do.
Not even only hosting podcasts, but listening to them.
Yeah,
it's like reading. It's
free
like
education.
another way to read books. Yeah, you know, books are one thing; they're still available, but like podcasts are freaking amazing.
Yeah, and that's why everyone always asks if I do audiobooks yet. I'm like, no, I like reading books, and then I get podcasts. That's like sort of my continued education. Yeah, is how I look at it.
And it's more of an entertaining read of it. Like when you get that guy reading the book, like chapter 1, I went to the water fountain and drank. Then, you know, you're like, oh god, like this is gonna be a long road trip. Yeah. Versus people just being real and raw and having conversation where you feel like you're a part of the conversation, is huge.
Yeah, and also, just another thing that was your idea. The whole podcast was your idea.
Hey,
people.
See, I got ideas. I just need you to grab them out of my head.
That was one of the questions, a fan question that we didn't get to last time, was how this podcast came to be. And for the listeners who are newer to the show, which we're having a lot, we've set a monthly download record 3 months in a row.
Hell yeah.
And before, it hadn't been broken in like a year. And so this year, for whatever reason, we have a ton of new listeners. And so for the new listeners, how it started, I started writing for Volleyball magazine in 2016. And I was working on my first book, We Were Kings, and Try was one of my first interviews. I think you were in Toronto with Hayden, or had just gotten back.
I think I was back.
I was living in Newport Beach, and we talked for like an hour and a half. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, I like hung up, was like, just talk to Tribal for an hour and a half.
That's hilarious.
And then you got your autoimmune disease, and you got the idea to start a podcast, and you're like, I'm a really good player. This guy's the only journalist type in the sport. I think we would be a pretty good team. Yeah. So we met at the Ocean Diner.
Yeah.
And then I think October of 2017, dropped the Buddha Try.
October, so it was right when I got back from my wedding.
Yeah, you were
honeymoon,
fresh back from Bali.
Yeah, I was in straight vacay Buddha mode.
Yeah. And you were like meditating 45 minutes a day.
Yeah, I went for that. I did like almost an hour a day for 21 days.
Yeah, which is impressive. Especially, I mean, for anyone, but especially for you, because you're like a fidgety dude.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't let me work out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in a great headspace, actually. As bad as that time was, the like mindfulness and awareness and like contentment that I was able to like tap into by going like super meditative was like cheat code.
Yeah, and that was I didn't know you before then. So all I knew was all I knew was Buddha Try. I was like, man, he's really calm.
And then the last few years, you're like, God, this guy's losing
it. He's intense.
He's really intense. Yeah, pretty much.
But since starting the podcast, like I can do pretty much like a little tree of all the opportunities I've gotten. And almost all of them have started in some way or another from either Volleyball magazine or the podcast, which are now pretty much intertwined.
Right.
And because commentating...
So epic.
I got a call from Volleyball World, and they're like, hey, we need commentators bad. And this was a couple weeks before Tlaxcala last year. And like, you seem to be pretty adept at talking about beach volleyball. You know the players because of the podcast,
right?
If you want to give it a go. And I was like, sure.
Perfect.
And so now my favorite job that I have right now is started from the podcast.
Hell yeah.
And so many other opportunities came from it.
We got a bunch of partners.
Yeah.
Sponsorships with the podcast.
And a new one sitting on top Wilson now.
Yeah, we got some shades, by the way.
Gooder.
They're much gooder than what you're wearing. GOODR.
They're gooder than yours.
We got some shades over here. Our Wilson's repping. Sorry about the construction. So it sounds like he's just knocking on the wall.
I know. New studio.
Yeah, we're building. We're actually going up. We're going to a second story of the pod.
That'd be sick with the ocean view.
Yeah.
Whew.
Well, we have
It'd be an
ocean
expensive
view,
studio.
I mean.
Yeah, we do.
And the waves have been good for years.
Same waves.
Yeah, same way. That left is always firing. But yeah.
But with you in the podcast, so I have a distinct advantage in answering this question because I went through and transcribed all these. But are there episodes from the past 5 years that stand out to you as either particularly memorable, one that you learned a lot from?
Right. Let me see.
Take a look.
Let me go through this contents. You know, it's funny that came up. Our episode with the Crabs and Nick and Sandra.
Yeah.
It's still like it's just
the most unforgettable.
That hard.
Oh my gosh!
On like a freaking live podcast.
When Trevor was telling the story about golf, and he was like, and I went, oh, my back went, oh.
when he's like, and so when I heard that, I was like, oh no, baby brother.
Taylor's like, you did
and
not.
Everyone was just like busts out laughing, just like there's no way you asked even if Taylor was okay.
Man, and having Nick in the room was easily perfect. He made that episode so much better.
He was standing next to Jake in Tokyo when he made the call.
He was so funny.
We had all the angles covered.
Yeah,
from that one.
We had the 360 view of Tokyo, but Nick came out and ran a couple USA practices last week.
Nick was here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez, where's my call?
Because he's in town for all those juniors and recruiting and stuff, and because he's the assistant at Florida State with Brooke. And so he ran 2 USA practices, and it was so funny. He comes in, and we're like an hour in. He looks around to see what drill to do next, and Fiapo and Jose just bailed. Nick was like, I was just supposed to be an arm, guys. I don't know what we're doing. And so he just made up like 2 of the best practices I've had in years.
I could see that.
Nick just like, boom, like just made it up as he went, and it was awesome.
He's always had those like
brings a great energy.
Tricky, like where you have to like mentally challenge yourself a little bit. I feel like he's always been into those kind of drills. Go over here, and then you got to do that, but then there's another ball, and then you got to stay in this section.
And Nick's episode was great, actually. It was funny because I texted Brooke Niles because she's in town as well, and to see if we could get her back on the podcast because as far as college content goes, we're very heavily slanted towards USC and UCLA just because they're here. Yeah. And we're trying to do as much in person as we can because Zoom just kind of sucks. Right. And Brooke was like, well, do I get to drink whiskey on the episode like Nick did? And I was like, Brooke, you can drink whatever you want. Yeah. It's on the house.
We got a fresh bottle for you. 100%. Dude, the fact that I'm looking at Brett Favre's name in here, that's up there on the list for sure. Know.
I'm so bummed that I missed that one. I don't know where I was.
Yeah, I forget.
And then, well, what was funny is that episode
that I was hanging out with Brett Favre
ended up being like
you're sitting in.
Ended up giving us some notoriety because that got put on a bunch of ESPN podcasts. Yeah, they pulled a bunch of clips from SANDCAST and put on their podcast. Like Brett Favre appeared on a beach volleyball podcast. I'm sure you haven't heard of it, but and then it was that whole drama at Southern Miss. I don't know if that's been worked out yet, but the timing of that episode was pretty funny.
I'm seeing. I thought the Finn Taylor episode was good because it's just like interesting to hear from him and like what his vision was before he actually got to implement anything. Yeah, I'd more be interested to like hear what he has to say.
I'd like to have him back on.
Yeah, because now I'm like, what about this? What about that? Yeah, where's all that? Anyway, Mikkel was awesome.
Mikkel was good. We gotta have Mikkel back on. The only thing is, I'm nervous to go back up to Mikkel because we gotta do the workout first. I'm like, oh man! But when we went, I had the flu. Do you remember that?
No,
I was so sick.
Struggling.
Yeah,
that's right. Cam's been struggling. So it'll make you feel better. Michael Gervais.
I know.
That was a great one because I just was like, oh, I gotta. Yeah. Because I listen to his podcast all the time. I was like, I gotta ask all the questions that I'm like thinking in my head every time I listen to his.
That's one thing. We had one of our fan questions asked about how you like stepped up your game in a recent episode. But when we have like a Karch, a Hav, a Michael Gervais, a Gabby Reese, where you're freaking like dialed, where like Michael Gervais, I can learn a lot
Yeah.
from you. And
Yeah.
I sit back and I'm like, damn, Charlie, these are good questions.
Nice. I'm glad. We got a good one too, you know?
We do. We ham and egg it real well.
Dude, yeah, and you're super good with all other episodes and like bringing in all this journalistic information and knowledge. And God, we work well together. Hildebrand was good. 'cause
Hildebrand
he's just
was
a smart dude.
He's a top
You
tenor.
could just listen to it and you're like, oh, that's a volleyball mind right
Yeah.
there.
I sent him a bunch of his quotes, and he was like, whenever you want to have me back on, ready to go. Like, that'll be soon.
That'll be worth it.
Yeah.
Lamborn's always a good chat.
Oh, he's so funny.
Brett Favre. You know we need to get back on is Casey Pat. We didn't even have him in person, I don't think.
I know. It was a Zoom.
Kent Steffes.
Kent was a good
that
one.
That was like, oh, this is Kent Steffes. Like, now I know what it is.
Yeah.
Like, the dragon came out of his cave. Phil Dahlhauser. Sneaky, funny, like, witty, like, good conversation.
So
For a quiet
funny.
guy.
Yeah.
Sneaky good conversation.
And he was on
Geeter
like
was.
three
We
times.
need to get Geeter back.
Geeter. I sent Geeter one of his quotes because I sent him the one where he talks about when Klay Thompson was in a slump, and Klay was just like, he jumped in the Pacific Ocean, came back, and that was like one of the times where he had like a 30-point quarter.
Right.
And a reporter asked him, "What'd you do?" He goes, "Oh, I just topped in the Pacific Ocean, played some volleyball."
Right.
And they're like, "No, what'd you do?" He goes, "No, the Pacific Ocean has magical powers, promise."
Yeah.
And Geeter talked about that, and I sent him that, and he was like, "Dude, would love to come back on." It was so fun just catching up with all these people.
Dude, yeah, exactly. There's so many more people too.
Yeah,
Riley was always fun.
Geeter's stories. Oh my gosh, about driving into Stadium Court on a Harley.
Oh yeah, you just hit record when he's going. You just hit record.
They were so funny.
Oh man, we had Norway on real early.
Yeah,
so it's interesting to see because they had so much success since then.
Yeah.
Oh. Habits, routines, and stories of Olympians, champions, and world-class athletes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about, people.
And then that's your boy on the cover.
Yeah, we didn't steal the AVP logo. If you look closely, I'm always wearing a hat, so you can see there's a hat on that guy.
And what's funny is that now that I look at the AVP logo, I'm like, why doesn't the guy have a hand? Like I saw,
Oh, really?
like when I saw this logo, I was like, it's very different because there's a hand there. And then I look at the AVP logo, I'm like, this guy just has a club.
Right.
What's wrong with this poor guy?
Yeah, and that one arm's just real straight before he hits it.
And,
like, one thing is for it to be straight on the pull through, like at some point, but he's like ready to hit.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Bad technique. We needed a new logo.
We did.
The Jerry West of SANDCAST.
Yeah.
Also, we did make the decision to make it like more of a coffee table book and the cover, so like you can legitimately buy this thing as a gift and like leave it out, and it's something that obviously people can just flip through and read a little one section here and there while they're waiting on the toilet if you want. That's actually a good place to leave it. It's
probably
as well.
a good one, yeah.
But my point being, it'll look good too.
Yeah. It is a good looking cover. I was pretty happy with how everything turned out because the first two books I did with a traditional publisher, and I hated it because you have to give up so much control.
Right.
And you also give up a humongous percentage of your royalties. And for this one, you get to control like the interior design. I was really happy with how it turned out.
Sick.
And I've used the same interior designer for the last couple books. And there's just flipped to Chase Buttinger. He has a hilarious story about dunking over P. Diddy.
Oh, that's one of my more favorite things to know that Chase is in the league. He chases one of us, and he did that.
Yeah. It was fun. It was just fun going back through. It's easy to forget the conversations that you've had with all these people. And some of it was funny because you could see, actually Trevor's first one, when he was playing with Rosie, and we were just talking about what his future might look like. He's like, I might split block. I might play defense. Like, I think I could go to the Olympics as a defender. And this was before he had played any defense.
Wild.
And he's like, I think my next thing is going to split block, which came true. He split blocked with you. And now he's going for the Olympics as a defender.
Right.
And I was like, geez, Trev.
should pull out all the predictions.
Yeah. Well, it's actually helped a lot.
He didn't throw out any guarantees in that one?
No guarantees. This is pre-Trev guarantee guy.
Gotcha.
But it's actually helped a lot with a lot of the storytelling I do writing from events because I can pull stuff. Now I have it like all on the top of my head where I can just pull stuff like Trevor said this in 2018.
Right.
Now we're here.
Yeah.
And it helps because a lot of it, like when you guys are in
have
Latvia.
To give credit to the podcast, you know. Even
I always link to
it. On the SANDCAST podcast.
On the SANDCAST podcast. Like they said that X years ago on the podcast.
On the podcast.
And then I linked to it. It's been funny to see how many things have come true. And on the flip side, how many people were like all in and then just disappeared.
Huh.
And I'll go back to Caitlin Ledoux.
Yeah.
And she was like, she talked a lot about going for Paris. But Caitlin's been out of the game for a while.
Right.
I think, and COVID also took a lot of that.
Yeah.
Like all of our pre-COVID guests, a lot of their big dreams.
I feel like the whole going all in thing it's great. And it really means I'm going to go all in and decide I'm either going to do it or not.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I'm just going to hang around and be wishy-washy about it, which is why you're going to see half the people that went all in are like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, which I think is a good way to go about it, unless you are a lifestyle person. Like you love the lifestyle of it and you're going to hang around and kind of dabble here, make whatever you can, but make up for it with your side job or whatever.
Yeah.
But the all-in people is just like all in or all out.
Yeah. Some people aren't meant to be all in.
Yeah, I'm more of the all-in person.
Yeah, and you've made it work. But you also know what it takes to be all in to make it work.
Right.
I think a lot of people, when they just like dive in, because like you've learned to be good with sponsors. You've learned that having a platform aside from prize money is pretty key.
Right.
And not that this podcast is a huge platform, but for our sport, it's decent.
Yeah.
And it's built a pretty good brand for yourself.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I think, will go all in before having done the sort of recon necessary.
There has to be intention behind it. You have to like keep re-upping the intention behind it and the plan behind it. You know, it's not like, oh, I did this to get here. Now I'm just gonna stay right here and keep doing the same stuff. It's like, no, now you have to figure out how to move forward from here. Now you have to figure out how to move forward from here. Yeah. And doing the small things before they start paying off is what makes you grow in the long run.
Yeah.
You know?
Actually, you wrote something really similar in your foreword, how you thought that once you went, all the sponsors would just come like throwing money at Bourne.
Right.
And then Maddie and Riley come along, qualifier guys, and they're now sponsored by Wilson because they have this YouTube channel. And you were like, hey.
Right, exactly.
Well, I'm here winning.
Right.
But Maddie and Riley are being recognized by everyone.
Right.
And then that seemed to be sort of a light bulb moment for you.
I think that was a little bit after, I'd say, when Maddie and Riley came out. It was more like I was just trying to figure out how does sponsorships work and like understand the business of it. Like I just wanted to understand it, and I think my best skill was really like having a deep understanding that I didn't know much. I think that's always been a strength of mine. It's just being like, even if it's like playing dumb. Yeah. Like if you always like act like you don't know, you don't have the answers, and there's always so much more to know, you're always going to gain so much knowledge and all that. So I've always been really open to it. And I think other people are kind of like, oh, I got the business side of it down. I got this down. Yeah. I get it. And then they just like stunt their growth. So from day one, I was just like, I want to learn it. Like, yeah. Let me know. I'm asking people and trying to figure out what path to go. And then I know how, once I see something that I think might work or that would be worth investing, all these good things are like investments, right? Nothing just pays off in day one. Right. So I think that's what it came down to, was like, and then seeing that early on, like, oh, the playing isn't what's paying for these sponsorships. If you're Phil Dahlhauser, okay, yeah. Yeah. If you're and they're the older generation, I kind of separated myself from the older generation as well, because I was pretty much the first out of like the guys. I was the first one doing Instagram, and like kind of making it part of the brand.
Yeah.
My own brand, and because I was like, oh, I'll do like GoPro stuff and like do all this, because I kind of was tapped into social, whereas the older guys were just like, no, that's stupid,
not doing that.
So I kind of was ahead of the curve a little bit there, at least got a head start.
Yeah.
And then when the McKibbins and them came in, I was like, whoa, like YouTube, like all the platforms, like we really need to invest in like understanding these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always known that Riley's and Maddie have been like so much smarter than me and all that, so I've just been trying to learn from them. But yeah, it's cool. And
the podcast has been fun because it's just sort of our like experimental thing. Like we just, whatever we want to work on. Like the whole reason that I started the little Road to Paris series was just because I wanted to practice hosting a studio show, and
there you go.
People seem to enjoy it. It's making me a way better commentator because now I have to know every in and out of the Olympic race, who's getting points, who's moving.
Yep.
And now I have to figure out, Asian Champs is this weekend. Now I got to follow along that, which shout out to the Aussies. They won again.
That was gnarly.
They beat Sharif and Ahmed.
Making me feel better
like,
about my loss.
Dudes.
Yeah, they went off. They've been going off.
Back-to-back goals. But yeah, it's awesome. And we figured out, like I said, it helped me earn a commentating job that's turned out way better, way more fun than I ever thought it would. And it's just all skill sets we get to practice here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the beginning. It goes into a lot of the things that the people have said in the book, is just like kind of following that like joy and passion that you find in something, and then it doesn't feel like work. Like I don't do much extra stuff outside of volleyball. So for me to do this every single week and like enjoy like building up the studio and the brand and like all that, and we don't pay ourselves.
Right.
Like we haven't paid ourselves in like 4 years.
It's been a while.
Just to do it just for fun and never be like, frick, I got a podcast. Like, damn it, we have a guest coming in, and it's never that. So yeah, super lucky for it, and hopefully eventually, it's pulling in millions for us. But until then, we'll just enjoy ourselves.
Small but mighty.
Exactly.
Which a huge shout out to our listeners. A lot of them have been here since day one, and they're the whole reason that the show has been as successful as it is. Because I don't know about you, but when we first started, I didn't think it was going to be every Wednesday for 6+ years.
0%. No way.
Yeah. No. And it's cool, man, I haven't traveled internationally in a while, but the first time I met Marco Kradiger, I remember I was in China, made my first main draw, and I was checking in, and Kradiger was behind me, and he was like, "Are you Travis?" He's like, "I recognize your voice from the podcast." And it was the coolest thing. And he was like, "Dude, I've been following along your journey. Like, congrats. I know this has been a long ride."
Yeah, wow.
And it's cool going international. Like, Alex Brower came up to me in Cape Town. He was like, "Oh, I have a book for you to sign for me." And like they listen to the podcast, and Brower's like, "Listen to the podcast. I read your newsletter. Read this." Like, had the book.
I know, it's so wild, Mike. I forget. Like, I don't even think about. I think of these guys as all my competitors and everything, and then every once in a while, like they like drop that they've been listening or whatever. I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah.
I've been in your car speakers. That's wild. You've been on your mind maybe a little bit. Yeah. It's just weird. And even fans when we're going places all over the world. Yeah. Where was I just?
Latvia.
Somewhere. Yeah, a fan comes up with Volleyball for Milkshakes, has me sign it.
Oh, sick.
Oh, it's in Ostrava.
Okay.
I'm just like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Like,
it's like the coolest thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
And I thought it was cool, which, speaking of Ostrava, I think you wrote your forward
on the way
back from Ostrava.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool that we wrote very similar forwards, the ideas behind it.
Yeah.
And so Tri and I didn't talk about what our forwards would be. I just said, hey, write just how the past 5 years have been with the podcast, what you've pulled away from it, that sort of thing. And then I did the same. I didn't send him my draft, and then he sent me his, and it was like the whole thing was just about how it's a podcast for the players, by the players. Like that was our original tagline, and I think we've done a good job sticking with that.
Right.
And it was cool that we've stuck with that foundation of just being a promotional piece for the players.
Yeah. And we've had a few people, I mean, decent amount of people be like, oh, like this, like you could tell they're like, this is my opportunity to like have my episode, you know? And that's like the coolest thing is we want the players, community, legends, you know, but it's mostly players, have them take ownership in the podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's hard to do too, you know, like it's easy to turn this into a business where like, hey, come on and get us downloads and get us, bring us a bunch of this stuff. But we still luckily are giving off that vibe of like people want to do it for themselves or to share their knowledge with the community and whatnot. We're kind of just that buffer in between. And we have a lot more ideas. Like
we do.
It's crazy how you mentioned like so many of our ideas have come to life.
Mm-hmm.
Just we throw out a ton of ideas.
Right.
Like, hey, well, we should do this one day. What do you think? and we're just like, yeah, that's not going to go anywhere, but I love it. Whatever. Those ideas have not slowed down. Like we got all kinds of ideas, and our minds are even blowing. Like, whoa, if we've gone this far, then imagine what we can do from here. So the future is bright, and like we said, we're not paying ourselves out of the podcast. What we mean by that is we're making some funds. We're building up a fund from our awesome sponsors that we have, and we're trying to reinvest it. So new ideas and new content, things, books. We're just trying to grow this thing. So we appreciate you guys being a part of this journey. Fans first, right? It's the listeners that players, whoever it is listening to this that makes it possible. Also shout out to Volleyball Mag from being a part of it from day one. Lee Feinswag, Ed Chan, rest in peace,
and Volleyball Mag and Wilson's
been on board from
day
the very
one.
beginning.
Coming
it's
on
like
6
a staple
years.
too. Like they legitimize us because they're the ball.
They're the ball,
and they just sit right there. And then so many other like authentic sponsors that have come on board. Like just like, you know, there's some podcasts where like you hear the sponsor, you're like, you guys don't use that,
right?
Whereas like, come on, YAK water, you think we don't use? Like every episode we're drinking it.
Yeah.
Athletic Greens every morning.
Every single morning.
Yep, on the road.
And it's funny because every time I go somewhere, a bunch of my buddies that I don't see a whole lot. So when I went to play Virginia with JD, he's like, dude, can you please bring me some Athletic Greens?
My sister had me bring her whole pack out to, she's like, send it to Hawaii. I was like, that's expensive. So she came out to a tournament and I brought her a whole bag. Yeah,
so I bring my dad, whenever I go home, I bring my dad some AG1, bring JD.
AG1, that's right.
Yeah,
that's what
rebranded.
They're going by now.
Yeah. But JD, our exchange was he took me hunting and I gave him like a month's supply of AG1.
Oh, perfect.
I know. So fair change is like ammo costs this much. This is how much the typical like 30-day AG1 subscription would be. He's like, here's hunting. It works out.
Perfect. Hell yeah.
Like perfect.
We got sunglasses now that we're repping. Gooder sunglasses. Obviously, we wear sunglasses every day. Ice barrel.
Yeah.
I'm in the ice barrel every day, and I just put a sauna in right here outside the studio. So the ice barrel, everything.
Like, the only sponsors that we have are ones that we're pretty fired up about.
Yeah, and I, I wouldn't even mind a money grab sponsor, but it just doesn't come to us.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
And the good thing about the book, too, is that it's been tested. So we had Micah, Ma, and Zana over for dinner. And so this was just sitting on the couch. And Micah just started flipping through it. He's like, dude, this is awesome. And like the whole night, whenever there's a breaking conversation, Micah would just flip through it. And here we got my boy, Big Will Hoey, Tim Brewster. And he just loved it. And I was like, you can have it. He goes, no. Like, that's too special. It's like, we got a lot for people exactly like you, Micah.
Yeah. Who will actually use it and read it.
Yeah. And who will hopefully be on the show soon.
Yeah, we got to get that guy.
We got to get him before he goes to Turkey.
Guy's one of a kind.
So yes, you can get the book, Amazon, Goodreads.
Yep. And if you do get it, we'd love it if you gave us a little shout out on social or something like that, or a review on Amazon would be ideal. Just help us to keep growing. And like we said, we're going to keep investing back into the pod. So the more help we can get from you guys to share it and spread it, it's actually a perfect gift book. because like I said, it's like that coffee table book. If anyone likes volleyball, like I can't imagine they wouldn't want this book on the coffee table.
And even beyond volleyball, I mean,
Right.
everything in here, there's a few specific volleyball stories and piece of advice, but I would say 85 to 90% is just really good, sound life advice.
Right.
From people who are the absolute best at what they do.
Especially like I think it'd be perfect for the people who want to kind of understand the sport and like know that it exists. So like if a player were to share it with their grandparents or their aunts and uncles and they really like that, I feel like reading this would make someone fall in love with the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Like those people that like are interested in it but kind of want to know what it's all about. Like boom, this is what the players are about. This is what the sport's about. And yeah, sweet.
Yeah, and if you do get the book, bring it to Manhattan, bring it to Chicago. We'll be happy to sign it.
Oh, for sure.
Do whatever you need. I'm sure that we'll probably do some sort of book signing at some point event. We're figuring that out. But anytime you want to bring it by, happy to sign it, send a little message. You guys are the reason that we keep going.
Hell yeah. Thanks for the support, everyone.
2-time author, try Bourne.
See, I surround myself with the right people, and they just carry me. Good work, brother.
Good work, homie.
Hell yeah.
Here we go.
Woo! Shoots.